And so helping these individuals that are sort of raising their hand to say, I want to get this credential, to help them actually get through it, always feels like an interesting problem to solve. And it feels similar to me I've worked on medical device situations where the product is like a therapy device. And the person has some sort of illness, and they need to use this therapy device one or multiple times a day so that they can prevent getting an infection, they can prevent themselves having to go to the hospital, all of that. And but they don't want to do the therapy. It's not comfortable, it's not fun. And so how do you motivate somebody to do something that they know is good for them, but is hard to do and is not fun to do? And so there was that parallel for me between that medical device work and what needs to happen with these learners. And so that was the appeal to me. And yeah, so I'm just there for just 2 months, really, just a little over 2 months.
Okay, let's open it up.
That was more than 5 minutes, sorry.
Oh, that's fine. Introduce yourself to Cameron.
I'm Noah.
Hi, Noah.
I'm a computer science student. However, I'm taking a project management class.
Okay.
And as part of it, we are sorted into groups and we have a project to manage, of course. My project is severely behind schedule, should I
Yes.
say. And the leader of the project, I'm not the leader, is getting severely burnt out. And you can see the rapid decline of enthusiasm and joy and, I don't know, just general willingness to do work. It is rapidly declining. What's the best way that like a team member can support someone that you vitally need to do? Like you need the team leader to lead the project.
Yes.
But I can't lead the project.
Yeah.
Also, Cameron, this is an excellent question. One of the things that there's lots of confusion. So a product manager is sometimes called a PM. And it turns out the P is often product, project, program. Right?
All of the above.
All of the
Yes.
above, right?
And
And my favorite, obviously, is product, because they're the coolest.
I mean, we are the coolest. It's a true story. But yes, they get confused. They get confused everywhere within companies, and then also like so often, somebody's like, "You're a project manager, right?" I'm like, close.
Yeah.
But
you,
no.
You lead, like, can you give the class, like, how that structure works at your current role? Because I've seen it work as the product manager manages everything, including the project managers, right? All they have influence but not authority over like the engineers.
Oftentimes it's that, yeah. Going back to your question really quick. So I've had the chance to manage people, and one thing, I've had a chance to manage people on a hierarchy where they literally report to me, but also most of the time in my career, it has been what you're saying, which is managed by influence. They don't report to me. But I need them to do something. Like I need the engineer to build the thing or my idea doesn't go anywhere. And it's not uncommon to have a weak link in a group, or somebody that's checking out, or somebody feels like they're above it, or it's a hard situation that you're in. I think if there's an opportunity to have sort of a real eyes conversation with somebody to say, listen, the role that you play here is essential, and here's what's not happening because I don't think you're leaning into your role the way we need, and we're all gonna kind of flounder if you don't step in. And it's sort of like and I'm saying it out loud, and it feels last ditch. It feels like the last ditch effort. Something maybe softer could be just to invite them, like, when you were expecting them to chime in, what were you thinking goes in this situation? That might be the softer first approach, rather than that nuclear option that I started with. But you know, I mean, sometimes the nuclear option, it depends on how far you've gone, but I don't know, hopefully that helps a little.
Yeah, and I think, Noah, like when we're in school, like we have that similar ranking where you're like, hey, dude, you gotta put your head in the game, right? You can have that discussion. When you're talking at a corporation and your ranking is like, you know, and you're down here, and you talk like you're a product manager and you're talking to like the CTO or the director of engineering, like, shit. Like I need to influence him, but I have like zero authority.
Yeah, there's a lot of, when you're in a product role, there's a lot of managing up and down. You're keeping your eye on where you want the product to go, and then you're in the weeds with what's happening right now. What do we need to finish this sprint? What is the expectation of the business leader? And then how do I go in there and convince this business leader that the investment that we should make goes in this direction, not that direction? And so there's this constant storytelling, and it's I was coaching a UX PhD student here recently, and I was saying sometimes being a product leader, it is that you're like a broken record. And he looked at me like a deer in headlights. You know what a broken record sounds like? Is this a familiar thing?
Do you know what a broken record is? Do you know what a record is?
So for those who have never actually used a vinyl record, if you get a scratch in it and it's spinning and the needle's riding on the little bumps, right? If there's a scratch in it, it makes the needle skip and then play over part of the audio, and then again and again, and so that's the broken record. But anyway, I feel like I need to tell everybody about records.
It's like when your MP3 is corrupted.
It just doesn't work. It's just brick. Anyway, so yeah, project management is certainly a different thing. Important, but most roles that I've been in, project management isn't a dedicated role. There's a lot of what's happening in enterprise right now that's been going on for several years, where there's this idea of a project mindset versus a product mindset. And there's a lot of consultants making a lot of money just helping companies transform from one to the other. It is a mind shift for leaders.
Where is it coming from and going to at the moment?
And even this is happening within GED right now, to some extent, is the notion of a project mindset related to how we organize to do work versus a product mindset. And I would say a project mindset is very much like, how do we get this thing done? How do we get to done? How do we get to delivery? It's about the outcome is the thing that you're making. And in a product mindset, the outcome is usually some data point in relation to a user. And instead in a project organization, typically it's very much that somebody on high is saying, we're doing this next. And then everybody lines up to do that thing next and to build in that direction. A product mindset comes from a product team that is constantly getting to know and re-know their users while listening to the stakeholders, and then telling the organization what we need to build that fits what the user wants, fits what the user's problem to solve is, and that also aligns with the expectations of stakeholders and the guardrails of the business. And so it's a very different way of organizing to do work, and some companies have a really hard time making that shift, but the ones that don't end up having typically very protracted, if they're in technology, their roadmaps can be very protracted, and they tend to be not necessarily building in the right direction, because they're using the hairs on the back of somebody's neck as the guide to where to go, rather than using real data to point to what is the next most important thing.
Is what this leads to, what project-based things leads to is you set the path and you finish it and you build the product and no one cares.
That's exactly right. You end up building stuff that wasn't necessary, you spend a lot of time and treasure, and meanwhile, your competitors out there listening directly to users, they're listening to their data, and they are gonna eat your lunch like tomorrow. And now in the AI world, it's like anything can go real fast in any direction. And so if you're not being pointed in the right direction, you just end up in the wrong place real fast.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, so I'm Ari, I'm a engineering software here. And one question I had was, since you deal with people on a daily basis every day, what's one takeaway, one key takeaway you had for this doing project? The one lesson.
But remember, you're talking to a bunch of engineers, except
Yeah.
Megan, who's not here.
People are hard.
Well, yeah, tell us something we don't know.
Yeah, people are real hard, and it is, it's been a hard lesson for me, I think, to, I don't know, not react, I guess. I think there's especially, when people get real passionate about a thing that they're building, which I tend to discourage, fall in love with the problem, not the product. I think there's, I think people get really passionate, and everybody has a lens that they're looking through that is influenced by where they came from, how they grew up, what happened on the way to work this morning, their relationships, their families. Like, there's a lot of different filters that come into somebody's worldview, and so, like, taking a moment to not react when somebody is maybe hitting you the wrong way was I feel like was an important lesson to learn. And that you just that you have to, like, I feel like you have to have like infinite grace for people, and to understand that you don't know what they're doing. So I don't know if that's worth anything, but it's
Cameron,
something I bumped into.
can I double down on that? So, a lot of the students here know about like customer discovery and going out and talking to customers, right? And I'm curious what your thoughts are on how do you create that moment of grace without becoming robotic or not like emotional? Because like when you talk to people, you need to connect with them.
Yeah.
And emotional, but you don't want to be too connected, because then that gets troublesome. But if you get too disconnected, like you just become a robot. They don't share with you. Where's that line?
So the author I would point to, and you can choke me out later if you feel like this is too cliche, but I would point to Brené Brown. Have you read any Brené Brown at all?
I have.
Yeah.
Do you guys know who she is?
Any Brené Brown? So Brené Brown writes a lot about leadership and about
She's a professor at Duke.
that sounds no, Texas. She's in Texas.
Oh yeah.
Like A&M or
Yeah. She's a professor. She's a psychologist-ish person.
yeah, she's written a bunch of great books. And the most recent one, I just read it, and now I'm blanking on the title. And then I bought 3 copies of it for my kids.
Well, when you get home, you can tell it.
It's on, I got it right here. But anyway, I think what she would say is that there is a balance of, I don't know if you wanna call it vulnerability,
Yeah. that's what-
that you would show up with, if I'll send it to you. That there's a level of vulnerability that is, it's the one that she wrote after Atlas of the Heart, whichever it came next. And so being able to just show up authentically and not put on a face, and I think that can go a long way. And
Strong ground,
That's it. That's
the
the one.
lessons of daring leadership, the tenacity of paradox, and the wisdom of the human spirit.
Yes, tenacity of paradox. There's so many conflicting things that you have to like hold at the same time, where it's like some of column A and some of column B. Not thinking of a great example right now.
والله
Anyway,
يحميكي
Brene Brown,
يحميكي
please.
بلاد
Hi, I'm
العالمين.
Alyssa, and I'm really interested in health tech, but I don't have a super technical background studying statistics.
Yes,
So I'm just interested, like, how did you gain your technical skills? What were they, and what would you say was most foundational to your success?
thank you.
Can you also add to that, like, from an engineering perspective, I suspect there's a lot of thinking about how to do this job well. You need an engineering perspective, right? And there is no one path to product management.
No,
And
no, clearly, and I'm an example of that, because I was like nowhere near it, and I wish, like, as I said, I wish I would have listened to my
Do you
19-year-old
think
self.
having a CS degree would have made you a better product manager? Or is it your trials and tribulations as the English?
I don't know, maybe, that's a good question. I mean, it's maybe hard to know. I think my desire to escape the soul-crushing world of advertising was probably a big driver for me to read, to go back to learning, to all that. I wasn't an eager learner in school, and I'm like, I don't even recognize myself now. I am like, I can't go
So
fast enough.
how can you give the students a few advice or thoughts on if they want to do product management in healthcare space?
Yeah,
Where would they start?
well, so to your question, first of all, your statistics understanding could like send you on a data science path, which, I mean, I don't know if that was your first thought, but to answer your question, so I came in and I was kind of smooth-brained, like I just didn't, like, I remember sitting down with some very senior developers when I first started at Best Buy, and we're out to lunch, and I'm like, so I know something about there's like the ones and the zeros that happens, and then at some point, there's like a button on my screen. Can you help me understand what's sort of happening in between there? And the answer was, so you want a computer science degree over lunch? I'm like, yes, please. So that didn't happen. I think what happened was I just listened to a lot of conversations for a long time and asked a lot of questions, and was really fortunate to have some senior engineers around me that were infinitely patient and kind to me and helped me to sort of understand the difference between the front end and the back end. Like, I couldn't just define like the difference between a function and a method, but I could understand the difference between front end and back end. I could understand which libraries or frameworks or whatever that my team was using, and I could learn which engineers on my team were good at what. And if I were to estimate a thing, I started to get good at being able to estimate a thing based on having just been around, having, built the off page 150 times I could start to be able to estimate how long it was gonna take to build that, and then it's just changed over time, because how you power it, or how you built it in 2010 is not how you build it today. But it was just a lot of listening for me. I didn't have a class. I didn't try to take a class. I just was immersed in it. And I said for years that I'm non-technical. And lately I've had a few people say, well, you're much more technical than me. And I'm like, wow, how did that happen? And it's just like, I don't want to argue, because it's like kind of feels like a cool win. But anyway, to the healthcare bit.
Yeah, related to that, because like, if you're a product manager in a healthcare product, you need to balance the technical parts and the healthcare parts.
Yeah.
How did you manage that?
It's, so the first time it was easy only because, building for Lori for a non-American use, we didn't have HIPAA. And so there was certainly, security in mind, and not, the ideas of HIPAA were in mind, but we didn't have
Like
the
FDA,
scrutiny
yeah.
that you would have if you were at UHG or something. But every time that I've had a chance to work on something medical device or med tech related, with the exception of Lori, it's always been that you got to worry about HIPAA and or GDPR. Sometimes both. GDPR is the European version of security and privacy, consumer security and privacy rules. And it gets challenging because the business is it's gonna be harder to get to have like direct conversations with real patients if your thing is actually patient facing. And so there's a lot of resistance that companies will have to being able to, allowing people from the company to go try to have a direct conversation with patients. And so it can be a bit of a process. It's a lot of relying on the data that you can see rather than engagement that you can have directly with patients, which is not ideal.
But with
Am I not answering what you were asking?
I'm trying to get, so I can see the confusion of this role requires like expertise in 3 different fields,
Oh,
right? And like how comfortable do you need to be so like when you're on this GED project,
yeah,
right? I suspect you know about GED before coming in.
right. That's true. So I've worked in ed tech maybe 2 other times in my career for short stints here and there. Some of that may or may not be really relevant at this point. I have certainly earned roles because I worked on something similar in the past, but I have argued many times. In fact, I had a role where the product managers that were reporting to me were subject matter experts in the field. And the CEO was very convinced that was a great thing. And I said, yes, in a lot of ways, that's a great thing. The problem with having a subject matter expert as your product leader is that they think they know. So they're not going to ask all the questions. They make assumptions because, well, I used to do this role, but they did that role 5 years ago or 7 years ago. Like, how many roles stay the same for that long? Literally 0 of them, except maybe bus driver. So it was like part of managing that team was about trying to convince the product leader that yes, your experience is valuable, but you can't assume that the way it was is the way it is. And so you have to ask the questions that even you think that you know the answer to, because you might get a different result.
So there's advantage to not being the expert in that space.
There's also the other thing that I've said to win roles, and this, to win a role. Like if I'm applying for a role and I'm trying to win the role. And the role that I'm in right now is an example because I would draw parallels between, well, specifically the example I shared earlier with medical device for somebody that's doing therapy that they don't want to do and you're trying to motivate them. There's a data pattern that's similar in that use case to one of a learner who's trying to earn their GED. You're asking them to do something they don't want to do. It's not fun. It's time consuming. They have a whole life around them that they want to engage in. And they would rather do really anything else. And so how do you find a pattern that motivates somebody to want to do this thing that they don't want to do? And so part of the way I think I landed this role was that I drew that parallel. That the data is, we can call it something else, but there's a pattern there that is somewhat similar.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Omar, I'm a data science student. You mentioned a bunch of different like industries and like fields of work that you've worked in. Have there been any through lines either on like a technical side or like a human side of the people you've worked with and around that have like helped you think about these or help just kind of help the product overall?
Yeah. So, I mean, the through line that I like to point to for roles that I've chosen is something that feels purpose driven. The people that, there hasn't been, there hasn't been like a person that I've worked with the entire time. There was a UX designer that I worked with in my first role, and I ended up working with him for 4 years at Best Buy. Then I hired him at my shop and he worked for me for 4 years. And then he and I both went to work for another shop and we were there for 2 years. So I was with this guy for like 10 years and he spoiled me for what good UX could be like. And he was kind of a unique snowflake. He was ahead of his time in that he was doing great UX design and writing all the front end code. And that was not a thing before, and now I would say that's going to be table stakes within a matter of a year because the models are too good at writing front end code, so there's no reason that somebody should have to do that anymore. I don't know if that totally nailed it. So that guy, I guess between him, my first mentor at Best Buy, he and I were friends before that. He and I we had tried to start businesses together a few times before I was at Best Buy, and then he hired me at Best Buy. He actually recently wrote a companion book to Marty Kagan's Inspired, which is like kind of like the Bible. His book is, the author's name is Gary Arlen, and his book is called Inspire. It's like almost the same as Marty Kagan's, and he did it very deliberately, and it's like Marty Kagan's book is like this is the framework for product operating model, and Gary's book is here's how to implement it. And he gives a lot of credit to Marty Kagan in the book. Anyway, he's been a through line for me, and I go back to him often for advice. He's a super smart guy. That's probably the two best examples that I have, the people that have been around the most. But I think just in terms of roles that I've in general have been my through line where I find I've been successful when I have a really great designer that I can see eye to eye with and that we can collaborate well, matched with an engineering leader that has the same feel, and that's the three-legged stool that a lot of organizations would talk about, that you have to have those three things working in good concert to be successful. Yeah.
My name's Kai, by the way. Touching on the businesses that you've launched and run, love to know what kind of parallels you've drawn from entrepreneurship to product management and kind of the key lessons that you've learned along the way.
Yeah, so first of all, when I was, the first businesses that I tried to start, I didn't know, I had never probably even heard the phrase product management at that point. And everything that I was trying to do, I was like crash course reading a big fat portable MBA book or, something like that, and just taking a lot of inspiration from one magazine or another. And it probably explains a little bit about why those things didn't go anywhere, perhaps. Though my first attempts were write part of a business plan and then realize it was a dumb idea, or write a whole business plan and then chicken out because it was gonna require raising a lot of money, or write a business plan and build a prototype and get it in a store and then not continue to push forward to the next step. And so when I started my shop in 2012, we were incubating a couple of products internally, and we were trying to be a service shop to other companies. So it's like the products we were trying to incubate were the dream, and our clients that we were building for were keeping the lights on. And it was a fine idea, but I think in hindsight I was spread way too thin, and I wasn't able to be a good product leader to the products we were trying to incubate, because I was also trying to run a business that is providing service to other companies to build their stuff. And that just it was just too much. I'm not Elon Musk, apparently. So, I mean, look at me not running 4 companies at a time. I mean, I guess I'm just subpar. What was your question?
I'm a senior communication major and I'm starting the graduate school soon, and I'm so interested in the areas like marketing, digital media, and probably tech in the future. But I'm still figuring out what direction fits me best. Although I'm not really sure about what field I will be in, but I'm sure I won't be stable in only one field. So looking back at your career, how do you know that when it was time to move into a different field, and how much did you learn from the school? You give you confidence to make that change, or what you learned from work experience later on?
I'm gonna say something here that is real sad, and that is that a lot of times I didn't get a choice, and I say that because so I was running my own business for 4 years, and I had a couple of products I was incubating, and they're in, I have paying customers, and I'm trying to manage these products, and I'm trying to manage clients. And then in that case, the business wasn't doing great. And then I had sort of a major life change that was happening outside of work that more detail than any of you want. It was just forcing me into a situation where I needed to prove that I had a paycheck. I mean, I guess I'll just tell you. So I don't care. So I needed to buy my house. I was getting divorced, and I didn't want to lose the house, because I felt like this is the house my kids grew up in, and it was going to be the best way for me to make sure they were going to want to be around me, and because it was the house they grew up in. And I had been on my own in business, either as an independent consultant or in my own business for whatever it was then at that point, 8-9 years. But my income wasn't so great that any bank was gonna be like, oh, sure, here's a mortgage for $300,000. That wasn't gonna be a thing. And so, but interesting trick about finance and about getting a mortgage is that it only takes one W-2 paycheck to prove your income. But when you're an independent business person, you need years of records to show. So I needed to quickly be out of the business and get a paycheck so that I could buy my house. So that wasn't my choice. But I was very fortunate. I landed in this great shop and got to do more medical device stuff, and that was great for 2 years. And then 2 years later, the owner of that shop, he was kind of sick of the roller coaster and he didn't want to have contractors anymore. And so he was starting to think about whether or not he was going to close the business. And he ended up basically closing his business and moving his shop into Medtronic. Medtronic had been the anchor customer of that business for years. And so he and most of his crew went into Medtronic, but they didn't have the concept of a product manager the way I wanted to be a product manager at Medtronic. That wasn't really a thing. Product managers at medical device are typically more like a marketing role, which is super confusing. It's been confusing to me. So, but it's a very different kind of role from the role that I play. So again, it was like a not choice thing. And that happened many times. Like I ended up in banking. I didn't really want to be in banking, but I ended up in banking and I ended up being there for 7 months and then got laid off because of a merger. So, I mean, just stuff happens. And so unfortunately not my choice most of the time. Man, that would be a great world if I could have just said, you know what, I've done my part here, I'm gonna go do something new. That unfortunately was not usually my reality. Sorry, man. Thanks for the question though. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Peter.
Hi.
I'm a biomedical engineering student. I guess my question is, I'm interested in the product, the med device.
Yeah.
If you would go back and want to go into that, where would you start and begin? And do you have any advice to get into the product management side?
Well, okay. So when you say you want to get into product management in medical device, you're not thinking about marketing though. You're thinking about wanting to develop the product. And so in most medical device companies, that role is called something else. And it's starting to change a little bit, like Inspire Medical, the Inspire Sleep company in Golden Valley. The VP of product there, she has been working to transform that organization from what I would call a more traditional medical device waterfall process to a product operating model. And it is, and I met with her about it specifically because I was like fascinated, like, how are you doing it? And she was talking a lot about how she had to, bring the senior leadership along. It's a very interesting story. But anyway, getting back to your question, I digress. Place to start. Anything R&D. If you can get your foot anywhere in R&D within one of those orgs as an intern, that's probably the best foot in the door. I know some of those companies are still running programs like that. But I think just be cognizant of the idea that typically in these medical device companies, product manager doesn't mean the same thing.
So you're saying that their model is the product manager is marketing, they go ask their customers, what do you need? They take that data and they throw it over the wall and then the engineering team build it?
Yeah, I wouldn't even say it's that great. There's two kinds of, I guess there's technically two kinds of product managers. Most of the product managers that I bump into in medical device, they call downstream, which is essentially marketing. So they have,
So this is after the fact?
it's kind of after the fact, yeah. And in fact, I was just contracting at Tactile Medical for the second half of last year. and they are very waterfall. And I had a senior product manager, I shouldn't air quote it. Her title was senior product manager, and she reported to the director of marketing. And when I met the director of marketing, he introduced himself to me as the director of product management, and then in the next breath literally said, and I've never been a product manager before. I'm like, you don't say.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, that's interesting. 'Cause-
and then within a matter of 5 minutes, looking around, I'm like, I can tell. Like, I can tell you've never done this before. But anyway, so she was sort of a partner that I was working with. My technical title, or my title there was technical product owner. I was strictly on the digital side, so I had nothing to do with the physical part of the product, but we were doing all of the, Bluetooth to an app that allows you to either control the device or track telemetry coming off of the device, keeping track of therapy, blah, blah, blah. She thought her role was closer to what I think a product manager is. And she was basically getting her wrist slapped for having an opinion about the direction of the product because stay in your lane. Not by me, like
but
from her
by their
leaders and
community.
from the person I was reporting to. Yeah, so
Yeah, so,
it's a hard place to be. The upstream product manager is the one that is looking at the data before the thing is being built.
what's that role called?
I mean, I don't even,
That's super interesting, because I
have a hard time finding it. I don't know.
Sometimes companies will post it with upstream title.
Yes.
I've seen.
Oh,
Yeah, and it's a very specific thing. R&D is typically the role that some sort of R&D, but usually it's not a it's typically not a product manager. They would have like a program manager in R&D because they're managing it like a project, not like it's a project mindset. So a program manager is essentially a really a well-seasoned project manager that is managing many projects at the same time and keeping track of them. That's a program manager. And that's typically somebody that's helping build the thing. They are a program manager at medical device companies specifically. But hopefully Inspire is going to inspire. I'm sure Medtronic has dabbled in it. I'd be shocked if Boston wasn't dabbling in more of a product operating model, but it's easier to do with digital than it is with a physical thing.
I know I was at Abbott, and their head of product is just the human factors group. Yeah, I was very surprised that that's not product.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
It's interesting insight.
And at Tactile, at least when I left, very much project mindset. You have very much top-down, somebody saying, we should do this next. But there's no supporting data. There's just like, or maybe there's some, but it's not being shared broadly. It's not a collaboration. It's a directive. And so then what you end up with, compensation structures matter. So you have an engineering leader that maybe gets bonused based on how many releases you have in a year. Well, that's about the worst thing that you could do because, that's arbitrary, first of all. What is a release? What is considered a full, what does that even mean? Like, it's arbitrary. And now this person that is like an engineering leader gets to decide what goes in the release, and that person's not really looking at user data, patient data, sales data at all. There's definitely organizations out there that are doing it in a way that wouldn't be my first choice.
Interesting. I wonder if that's the part of their history. It's how they do
Well,
it.
yeah, I mean, it's a long waterfall history and they haven't had, they're a public company and their sales are fairly successful and kind of that's where their carrying stops. So until some Tel Aviv startup comes up and starts eating their lunch, I mean, by then it'll be too late, but that's how it goes. Like they're not nimble is the problem. When you're project based like that and you're sort of disconnected from your own data, there's no way to be nimble.
Matt, you wanna ask the last question?
Sure, so David planted me, I'm a product manager.
Oh,
early in my
fantastic.
career, so that's how I have a little bit of insight, but.
Fantastic. Where are you
my
from?
name's- I'm product manager at Emerson,
Oh,
so it's
very
an
cool.
industrial space, but.
Yeah, yeah.
My name's Matt, I'm, been in product management for about 2-3 years at this point.
Fantastic.
And one of my questions is, I've been in, like I said, I've been in product management, I bring up different, like product janitor, a lot of things, like, I know, when you say product owner, I'm in software, I understand what you're saying, you and I are speaking similar language. I guess one of the questions I have is, early in your career, I guess it's a little different, early in your product management career,
Yeah.
what do you think helped set you apart? And what do you think you wish you would have done that could set you apart?
That's great. So I think the thing that set me apart, like I had this, I was in awe of what the engineers on my crew were able to do. And I just held them on such a pedestal. And somebody pointed out to me that while they are really good at setting up the data schema, setting up the infrastructure, building the thing, that's great. What they're not great at necessarily is being able to do the collaboration with the stakeholders, have the direct conversation with customers, and then be able to distill that into something that we can all agree is the right move forward. And so I came to appreciate that I am capable of sitting down in a room full of people and having a conversation and being able to ask questions, be able to ask open-ended questions. This is where my sales career, I think, really came in handy. It was like a boot camp for meeting new people. You know, I'm on 10 meetings a week, and every single one of them, I'm asking open-ended questions about the business problems they're trying to solve, and that's product discovery. And I did it every day for 12 years wearing a suit. I mean, you guys are so lucky.
You're not bitter.
What's that?
But you're not bitter.
I'm not bitter. No, I am a little bit. I mean, seriously, I wore the same suit. I was working like 14-hour days when I first started to make, in my sales career to try to, make a living. And man, I was like, just like 2 suits and 3 shirts and 5 ties and just like rotating them every single day. Your other part of your question was what I wish I could have done differently, or I wish I could have grokked the technical stuff earlier. I think I could have asked smarter questions earlier. Eventually I got there. I could ask the questions to get to the trade-offs. But even just in the past couple of years, I feel like my level of understanding has gone way up, like playing with these AI tools and watching Cursor build it for me and it checking in with me, and I'm finding that I'm actually looking at some of what it's proposing to do and making changes. Like that wouldn't have been a thing that I would have even attempted a year ago. So I feel like my learning is still happening, which feels great.
Here, can you guys stay 2 more minutes? I have a question I think you guys would like to know. In your roles, Cameron, have you mentored young product managers, and how would you advise students to go, like how do they get into this space?
Yes, I have. And in fact, I have 3 individuals right now that are on my team that they're not product managers right now, but they're business analysts. And at least one of them for sure wants to move in this direction. And so, for that individual, it's encouraging her to think about the questions that she's asking, encouraging her to think ahead to where the thing fits in the system, encouraging her to have direct conversations with engineers about feasibility, encouraging her to join me on stakeholder conversations so that she can see the gear shifting that happens between talking to an engineer and speaking pure Klingon to, trying to have a conversation with a stakeholder. I mean, I think the one thing that I would say for sure, though, that I am saying in my current role to this person that I'm mentoring, to the rest of the team, to the engineers that I work with, like, this is a crazy, crazy time in this business. And what's happening is that all the roles are rolling into the middle. They're all merging together. The lines between them are blurring very fast. And so, talk about a UX person that could do front-end code. They were a unicorn 10 years ago, and it will be an expectation next year. And full stop. And the engineer is creating prototypes, and the product leader is creating prototypes. And the guy that basically wrote Claude code is essentially saying product management is the role that is going to be left. And I don't know if that's necessarily true. Feels a little hyperbolic, a little soon, but everything is changing very fast. And so the most successful engineers that I ever worked with stayed curious. And the challenge that you'll all have is that you got to stay curious and go way faster than 10 years ago, because the change is happening faster. And so just to keep up and to know what's happening and to not get obsoleted before you start, there's always a lot to learn. So don't stop.
Okay, let's end it there. Thank you, Cameron.
Thank you.
They all have your LinkedIn profile.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I think some of you may have, if you haven't connected with me already, just send me a thing, an invite or whatever, and yeah, let my network be yours as you are thinking about roles that you're finding, or you think of companies that you're interested in. See if I know somebody there. I'll say my connections are not 100% clean, like I know every single person. Some of them I'm closer to than others, and for the most part, if I know them at all, I'm gonna be willing to at least send hey, I wanna introduce you to this person. I'll always try. Doesn't mean it'll always work. But some people that I know better than others, I'm definitely happy to make those connections too. So, but yeah, keep building your network, go to meetups. And keep learning.
All right, it's their spring break next week, so you
Enjoy
guys
it.
have a good time. See you guys in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to see you. I appreciate the invite.
It's nice for you.
Thank you. And it's so cool. Automated. It's like,
Thank you.
All right, see you. Oh, Meg, you are on there.
Yeah, I am.
I do.
I'm not allowed to different items in product management.
That's great.
But when you said like, oh yeah, I'm just going from the